What's up, guys? This is Dr. Casey Johnson. Thank you guys so much for taking time to listen to the Unlock Wellness podcast. I know you're going to love today's episode with Doug Schmidt. Doug has such an inspiring story and is helping so many people, so I'm excited to have him on to share a story with you guys. This episode is extra special today because it is the 100th episode of the Unlock Wellness podcast, and it's just so crazy that it's already happened this quick. When I started this podcast in April, I honestly had no idea how it would evolve, who I would be able to connect with, and how many people that I would be able to help and just share amazing stories. But it's been such an amazing ride, and I can't wait for the next 100 episodes. And I'm just so thankful for the amazing support from everyone that has been listening. You guys are the best, and every time you message me or comment or share the podcast, it for real means the world. So I'm just so thankful for you guys, and I'm also thankful for the amazing connections that this podcast has been able to provide me, and just people that I've really admired for a long time can now be called friends, and I just feel so blessed for the inspiring people that have been put into my path and that I've been able to help share their amazing stories. So just thank you guys just so much. So if you guys have been loving the Unlock Wellness podcast, if you've really resonated to any of the stories that these amazing guests have shared, if you guys can just take 2 minutes today, grab your phone or your computer, jump onto iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It really helps me out so much. Every time that iTunes gets a new subscription or a new positive review, it helps attract more listeners to the podcast on iTunes. So what that means is that more people can find the podcast and more people can hear these amazing stories. So if you guys can just take 2 minutes and do that for me today, it would really mean the world. So just thank you guys so much. Also, be sure to follow me on social media to keep up with the latest podcast episodes. The best way to connect with me is on Instagram and Facebook. My username across the board is at Dr. Casey Johnson. That's DrKaseyJohnson. You can also check out my website at drcaseyjohnson.com. It has all of the past podcast episodes and more information about each guest under the Listen tab. While you're on my site, be sure to check out the Shop tab, where you can check out my first book of my Healthy Children's Book series and learn about the Unlock Wellness Project, which supplies a wellness bag to a child in need for each book purchased. Thank you guys again for listening. I can't believe this is the 100th episode. Extremely thankful for everybody that's been supporting the podcast, and I just hope you love this episode with Doug, and I hope it leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. So now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Doug Schmidt. Thank you guys again for listening. Thank you for supporting this podcast. I can't believe we're at 100 episodes, but I just hope you. Thank you guys again for listening. I can't believe this is episode 100. I appreciate the feedback and the support so much. So just excited for the next 100 episodes, and just thank you for the support. Thank you guys again for listening. I can't believe this is the 100th episode. Just thank you again for all of the support this past 100 episodes. I can't wait for the next 100. And I just hope you loved today's episode. Hope it leaves you feeling inspired to start making positive changes to your health. So now it's time for today's episode. I hope you love my conversation with Doug Schmidt. Welcome to the Unlock Wellness podcast of Dr. Casey, and excited for today's guest. I'm here with Doug Schmidt, and Doug has an amazing story. After having a heart attack in 2008 at 49 years old and 225 pounds, he knew that he needed to make serious changes to his health and his life. And after transitioning to a whole food plant-based diet, Doug was able to lose 60 pounds, but the positive impact didn't just stop with him. He's now helping over 1,300 colleagues to do the same. And his story is just extremely inspiring, and I'm just excited for him to get to share that with you guys today. But so, Doug, just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm really excited for you to share your story with everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad I'm on your podcast. I love your energy.
Oh, I appreciate it. And yeah, I know we were saying before, but big shout out to Josh Lajani for connecting us. He's amazing. And definitely go check out his episode of the podcast as well. But yeah, I know Josh is just an amazing guy.
He is. He's one of my idols. Even though he's younger than me, but he's accomplished so much. It's great.
He has. He's really great. And yeah, Doug, so we'll just jump into it and just walk us through your story. Take us back, what your health looked like leading up to when you did have your heart attack, and then just walk us through how all of it progressed.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, back in 2008, I was the typical middle-aged guy. I had extra pounds on. Most people that I work with don't even say that, oh, I didn't think of you as heavy back then. But I was weighing in about 225 pounds, and I'm 5'10". And I ate the standard American diet. I love to cook and I love to eat. I'm a foodie by nature, but it didn't mean I really ate real bad. I didn't eat a lot of processed food, but obviously I had eaten enough to put on the extra weight that I had on. And it was Memorial Day 2008, and I was just in the yard, and all of a sudden I had a pain between my shoulder blades. And I thought, oh, did I pull something? And I tried to sort of shake it off, and then I got a tightness in my chest. And that wasn't enough for me to think anything more. I really must have pulled something. But then the nausea came, and the three of them took me to the ground. I sort of laid in the grass for a little bit, caught my breath, everything subsided, and I went into the house and Googled chest pain, back pain, nausea, and across the Google page just kept scrolling, heart attack, heart attack, heart attack. So I called my doctor. Yeah. And where I was in Ithaca, New York. I was visiting a friend. So my doctor said, go to the hospital. So I had my soon-to-be wife take me to the hospital, and they hooked me up to all sorts of monitors. And I was just chit-chatting with nurses when doctors came running in from everywhere and said, we have to get you out of here. And I said, what do you mean? You're having a heart attack. And it was Memorial Day weekend, so their cardiac team was off. It's a small rural hospital. They didn't have anybody extra on staff to help me. So they said, you can go to Sayre, Pennsylvania, or you can go to Syracuse. Where do you want to go? And I go, Sayre, Pennsylvania? Why would I want to go to Sayre, Pennsylvania? Little did I know that that's one of the major heart hospitals. So I go, send me to Syracuse. And they took me by ambulance up to Syracuse, and after I got in the hospital, about an hour later, I came out with a stent in my lower anterior descending artery, which they call the widowmaker, because only 10% of the people that have a heart attack there survive.
Man, that's just crazy. And it's like you were saying before, you got extremely lucky to even survive, but extremely lucky that you were able to handle those symptoms well enough to get yourself inside, to Google it and then make it to a hospital and still be okay. Because most people, like, if it hits you like so hard that you can't even get back in the house, you could have died right there in the yard. It's just extremely lucky your scenario.
Well, the month earlier, my wife and I were up in the Adirondacks climbing a couple of the it was Porter Cascade, two of the high peaks, and the snow was up to our hips. So if you fell off the packed trail, you fell up to your hip. And I just think if I would have had the heart attack up there, I'd be a goner.
Oh, for sure. That's really scary.
Yeah. So it definitely was a wake up call.
Yeah. And like you were saying, like, you weren't extremely overweight. People wouldn't really say that, but how was your own mindset about your own health at that point? Like, was your mindset like, health is average, good to go because I'm not like obese, or where's your head at in all of this prior to the heart attack?
Right. I mean, I love the outdoors. I used to camp I was a Boy Scout leader. I'd camp with the Boy Scouts. I'd go hiking, snowshoeing. I felt for my age, I was doing pretty good. Mm-hmm. And I think the key was, you really don't know true health or true fitness unless you've experienced that. So my whole life, I mean, I was active, but I didn't. I don't think I ever recall true fitness where I'm push the boundaries of what my body could do. I just went through life day to day doing what I did. I mean, with Boy Scouts, we went out to the Scout Ranch in New Mexico. We hiked 100 miles in 7 days, did that kind of stuff. But that was just still didn't tax my body the way I'm doing now. I run now. Last year I did my first marathon. I did 2 half marathons last year. Nothing major, but for me, that was to train and prepare for those things. I've challenged my body in ways that I never really did before. And now feeling how, I'm 165 pounds, I'm running miles and miles at age 59, I'm saying, this is what I missed all through my 20s and 30s and 40s. And I'm glad I found it now, but I sort of regret that I didn't find it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing. And like, and kind of to rewind a little bit on your story, like, you were saying that after your heart attack, and obviously you're lucky to survive that, and you said it was a huge wake up call. So like, what are your next steps? Like, you leave the hospital, you have your stent, you go home. What are those next moves? Like, did you kind of think about it for a while, or like, were you straight back on Google, like searching ways to make this better? Like, what are your next steps that you take?
Exactly. I came home, and after you have any heart issue like this, they put you on a battery of medicines. And I had these pills, and I said, I didn't expect at age 49 to have all these pills. These are pills for somebody in their 70s. What are the long-term side effects of these drugs? I really did not like the idea of being on all these. So I did. I went online and I Googled heart disease, and I think it was healing or something. And the first thing that popped up was Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn's book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. So I immediately ordered that. I also my wife ordered Dr. Dean Ornish's books, and we read those, and especially Esselstyn's, cut the dairy, cut the meat, cut the oil, what's left? I said, this is too extreme. And so even though I had that wake-up call that I needed to improve what I ate and my health, I thought I could still hold on to those things that put me in the hospital in the first place. We did move to a small 8-acre farm. We started growing our own fruits and vegetables. And I decided I'd follow the American Heart Association diet. They said, we had our own chickens on the farm. The American Heart Association says I can have 4 eggs a week. So I'd have 2 eggs a week from my own chickens. How much better can that be? We did stop the red meat. So we only had chicken. I didn't have pork. So we'd have chicken and fish. And a year later, I was back in the hospital with a scare. They sent me by ambulance. And the hospital went in and took a look at my arteries and said, yeah, there's some 60% blockages. They like to stent over 70%. And they said, we're just going to watch and see. You probably had a blockage that passed. Well, at that point, things started getting a little serious. We said, okay, the American Heart Association diet's not working. And we started gradually moving towards Esselstyn's, what I like to say, his protocol. Mm-hmm. But even with that, it was a slow process, giving up, changing your lifelong habits that literally start in the womb with what your mother ate is hard and difficult for everyone. And both my wife and I would read. My wife took the E. Cornell course on plant-based nutrition. And so we were reading everything we could get our hands on, and gradually and slowly we started, we ended up being vegetarian. So we just had our eggs. We cut out our fish, or chicken at least, and then we eventually cut out fish. The last thing to go is oil. But what triggered our final shift was I had statin sensitivity, and the doctor I had said that research says that about 10% of the population is statin sensitive. He believes it's a higher percentage. But what would happen is the first statin they put me on caused plantar fasciitis. The second one caused my toes to splay like somebody was splitting them apart. And
That's crazy.
The last one caused generalized muscle weakness throughout my whole body. I couldn't get up and down stairs without a hiking pole. I couldn't get out of the car without pulling myself physically out of the car with my arms. And I felt like I was an 80-year-old man.
It's just crazy. I mean, you don't hear about that enough, those type of reactions.
No, and my own doctor gave me other examples of patients that's what he narrowed it down to. And so he goes, we have two options here. We can either put you on another statin and see how you do, but we know already that doesn't work well for you, or we can do it all by diet. And that's where the rubber met the road. That's where it was all on me at that point.
Yeah. Well, at least he gave you that option,
Right. And he was a great doctor that I had. It was a real working relationship between us. He would test my blood work. Initially, it was every 3 months. Then we went to 6 months, and eventually we got to once a year. But he could tell just from my blood work, Doug, you're still drinking that wine every night, aren't you? Because your triglycerides are high, or you haven't cut out this because these numbers haven't come down. But once we went with the full Esselstyn protocol, no oil, no dairy, totally plant-based diet, the weight just fell off without any exercise than other normal activity, and all my numbers came into line. My total cholesterol is 120, and Dr. Esselstyn says under 150, you're heart attack proof. So, without any medications, I'm off all medications. I feel like it's a new lease on life. And then I had all this energy. I had to do something because I couldn't sleep at night because I had so much energy. And that's when I took up running, just to burn some of that excess energy off.
Like, how was your, I mean, obviously when you were talking about you're walking around with a cane because you're almost, obviously not paralyzed, but you have such weakness that you can't get around, going from that to now you have so much energy, you want to go run as far as possible. I can't imagine just that hope level. I can't imagine what you were like then. And then, I just can't imagine what that total opposite of going from that to now I have to go run a marathon. What you must feel like during that.
Well, it was interesting because I'm a school teacher, so I had summers off and an 8-acre farm for the two of us where we grew most of our own stuff and we sold extra by the road. But there's still a lot of work that goes into the managing the horses, the chickens, everything. Mm-hmm. And I just thought initially that I really worked myself into the ground. So I thought my constant being tired, the soreness was just, I really worked myself. And when it didn't get any better after I really sat down and let myself rest for a week or so, that's when I went to the doctor and he told me all that. Fast forward to the running, both my wife and I started running, and it was just, around, the rural roads, a mile here, a mile there. And then that mile became 3 miles. And then those 3 miles became 5. And then over 10. And it was like, this is weird, especially having never ran a mile before. And then to go in the car and we just traveled 10 miles. That's how much we ran. And it's like, it's mind-boggling. And, other people have talked to me and said, there's people who have never run a marathon. So, no matter what your time is, you can say you ran that marathon. Right. And, it's a great satisfaction, but it's, the other satisfaction with running is it almost makes you feel like a kid again. On a nice sunny day with the wind in your hair, running down a path, nothing beats that. Nothing beats that.
It's just amazing. And, I loved how you mentioned it earlier. You were saying that, whenever you first looked into Esselstyn's book, and you were like, man, that's too extreme. But then, like, isn't it crazy now? It's like you can't imagine living any other way. And it's like you thought that was extreme, but most people don't think that. It's like you think that's extreme, but having to have a stent put in your heart wasn't. It's just kind of crazy where, like, the way of mainstream thinking is like that's not extreme, but just changing your diet to that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is ridiculous, and talking with others and trying to get them to change. You can't make anybody change, but
right.
When they look at you and say, wow, how'd you do that? And you say these things, oh, I could never do that. Well, you could if you had a certain impetus. I consider myself lucky in the fact that I'm lucky enough that I can do this. So many people, especially who have heart attacks, that may be their only chance, and they're gone afterwards. So I'm lucky. And a friend of mine, an older gentleman, he's retired. He had 19 stents put in.
Crazy.
Not all at once, and some of them are stents upon stents because they closed. And he found Esselstyn after the 19th stent, not by a doctor, but by his own research. And he goes, if a doctor would have told me after the first stent, I wouldn't have had to get 18 more.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that he found them at all, that he was able to make it to that point. But it's just, it's hard whenever the information's not putting out there, especially from a heart physician, when you and I both know and have seen the positive impact that it can really have. I've heard so many stories, especially just doing this podcast. Like, when you hear somebody's story of how they like almost died to now they're vibrant, healthy people for themselves and for their families, like you can't argue it.
No, you can't. And that's the power of this. And it's really simple when you take a look at it. I mean, all your vitamins, the majority of your vitamins comes from fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes. So why wouldn't you think that this could help heal your body? And my wife said the other day, she goes, food is a life force. And I thought, wow, that's so true. Depending on what you put in, it either feeds your body or it hurts your body. So you have that choice and decision to make every time you put something in your mouth.
Right. No, absolutely. And Doug, I love your story because, it didn't just stop with you, and you decided to keep sharing your story and help other people do the same thing. So do you want to walk us through how this whole movement at your school started, and just all of the really awesome work that you're doing with it right now?
Well, it's been the past couple of weeks have been a little overwhelming.
Yeah, because you were on was it Good Morning America?
Good Morning America. Yeah, it was their cover story a little while ago, and didn't expect that to happen. But about 3 years ago, a position opened up in our district, health and wellness coordinator, and somebody said, Doug, you should apply for that. And I said, maybe I should. So I did, and I got the position, and it's a adjunct position. It's not really paid for anything. It's just like a committee you're on, but I'm the health and wellness coordinator. And there's certain funds from our local insurance company that we get to spend on initiatives within the district. And so my first year I said, I'm going to do a 10-day Jumpstart Your Health plant-based challenge based on Plant Pure Nation had just come out, the movie, and they were selling their food. So we had employees who wanted to try this. They had half the food paid for it, plus they got the cookbook. And we had 36 people that year. It ended up, after some people dropped out, 31 people participated. And it was pretty well received. Then the next year I said, well, let's do it again, but we can't afford to do the same food setup. Plus, we found Rip Esselstyn's book, the Engine 2 7-Day Rescue book. And I really like that book because the whole front of the book is the science on, how chronic disease is rampant through America, why we shouldn't eat certain foods, and it really laid it all out. And the rest of the book is all recipes. So I thought, this I want to try. So we gave that, and that year we had 63 people sign up. And some of those people in the district had done the year before and wanted to try it again. But some of the people came on board just to be coaches for the other people that hadn't done this. And that was great because they were there, giving encouragement, giving them pointers, and really helpful. Fast forward to this year, we're in a consortium of 34 school districts plus a local community college for our health and wellness coordinators. And the gentleman who runs it, Rick Edmondson, he said, Doug, would you consider doing this 10-day jumpstart for all the administrators to show them, how we can change health in a very short period of time for the staff? And I said, well, why don't we go one better? Why not open it up to everyone? And he goes, Doug, that's a great idea. And we were expecting about 500, maybe 700 people from the 35 school districts, but it ended up being 1,300 participants.
That's just amazing.
And about 200 of them, the administrators, got before and after biometrics, so they could see the actual change in their cholesterol from before to after. And it really opened a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, I'm guessing you have all of that, like all of those before after numbers on file for just like research purposes too.
We are collecting the data, and a local medical Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute. When they heard about it, Dr. Ted Barnett, he's a friend of mine. When he heard what we were doing, he says, this could be a research study. And he submitted all the paperwork to get it to be listed as a study, and we are gathering the data. He's going to be doing the number crunching and figuring that all out.
Awesome.
But it's amazing, and life-altering things for a variety of people. People who suffered from chronic problems that the doctors were never able to either narrow down or to solve with pills and medicines are now saying for the first time in years they're symptom-free in just 2 weeks. We had other people who what's interesting, even though we did it for 10 days, some people were so excited they started a week earlier testing out recipes, getting ready.
Did you guys follow Engine 2 this year too with the 1,300?
They started a week before us. And so even though we led them to that website, we had our own Facebook page where we could all share questions and answers and tried to be reachable for all the employees instead of being some email box out in the nether regions of the internet.
Right.
We did this page, and 800 of our members were on that page, and we were able to answer all their questions.
Yeah, that's a very large portion of like to join the group. That's awesome. The engagement. Yeah, it's just awesome. And I love that you are going to make it just a full out research project, because just the more information like that we can put out there, even though we both know it and we see it, and then we watch these documentaries and see it, like when you have something that with that many people and reach it, and that's extremely powerful, especially for people that may be on the fence about it.
Well, we had people who in just the 10 days dropped 50 to 100 points on their total cholesterol.
That's just awesome.
Some of the preliminary numbers that I had, I just looked at total cholesterol. I have 31 people that have submitted their work so far. And out of that 31, 15 of them had dropped their cholesterol below 150. And Esselstyn will say that below 150, you're heart attack proof. So these 15 people can basically be guaranteed they won't have a heart attack. Will probably never, if they stay this way, they won't get type 2 diabetes, and they won't suffer from a host of other chronic diseases.
Right. I mean, just the decreased inflammation alone. I mean, I mean, you're covering a wide number of different just illnesses. And I mean, that's just really amazing. And like, have you guys considered doing it more than once a year, or is it just because of like school budgeting and stuff, you have to keep it to like that once a year?
Well,
Testing?
I talked with Rick Emerson about this. I said, just a heads up, I said, if our district is any indication of what the other districts are, we went from 30 to 60 to 80 this year, 89 this year. So, each year doubling. So I told him, I go, we could probably break 3,000 next year if we did this again.
Just crazy. I mean, I'm sure it's something that maybe you've thought about or like hoped for, like the impact that it might have on school lunches. Because obviously, if the staff is noticing the changes that you're having within the staff, like obviously you're going to have better students and, obviously help them while they're at school because they're at school most of the day. Like, has that come into question at all too? Just the impact that it can have on like school lunches?
Well, what's interesting is some of the each district was asked for 5 administrators to have their biometrics done. That would be paid for and covered. In our district, and I think in some of the others, I don't have any hard facts with this, but in our district, our food service director did it. So it's too soon to know if any changes will derive from that. But yes, in my head, there is sort of a back of my head agenda that I would like it to affect school lunches, to have healthier lunches. To when they're talking whole grain, it's really whole grain and not something that is 50% whole grain. So hopefully, it's a trickier nut to crack in the fact that the USDA has so many regulations on what schools can and can't serve that it limits some things. If you take money from the government, you have to do things their way. So, but I'm hopeful that like last year, I had a teacher come up to me who had been doing it for the past 2 years, and she said, "How can I consciously teach the USDA food plate when I don't believe in the USDA food plate?"
Right.
So,
I mean, that's got to be like hard because you have to in that situation.
Right. So I told her, well, teach the Harvard food plate. The Harvard food plate doesn't have dairy on the food plate, and it's a little better. So it'll definitely be a slower thing there. One of the things I've sort of thought in the back of my head, with doing these challenges too, there is no real hidden agenda outside. I want people to have better health, and I don't want people to suffer, and I don't want people to have a heart attack or get colon cancer or whatever. But there is, in my head, I'm sort of saying changing the world one teacher at a time, because teachers do have such an influence on the world, on their students, on the parents of those children. So, and they control in some ways what comes into the classroom for snacks or for holidays. So, maybe some gradual changes can be made this way. So we'll see as time goes on. But it's definitely been powerful. I think, the testimonials from different individuals, you can almost hear the tears in their eyes as they're writing to me about some of the things that they've gone through and hadn't had success in the regular medical community, and now they have hope.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the amount of hope. Like you were saying that people are dropping that many points in just 10 days. I mean, when they probably haven't seen anything like that after so many random yo-yo dieting and all of these like fad diets that are out there, and that really might give you hope for like a second, and then you realize that it's not sustainable. Like, yeah, I mean, it's just so life-changing. And like, are you guys gonna like try to like film anybody's progress as well, like to get just the footage as well of, because it is a big deal. It's a lot of people.
It is a lot of people, and I think our Facebook page is open to everyone now. Initially, after the Good Morning America article um, story, it was inundated with people wanting to join. And we couldn't let them in because we were in the middle of the challenge. We didn't want to water down the challenge with all these new people coming in. So now we've opened it up and more people are joining. And, I have asked people, share your stories there. Share your pictures. It's too soon to have some of those pictures, but people are sharing their numbers, their changes. They're changing, or they're sharing recipes and what worked for them. And so it should be interesting to see how that group progresses.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, Doug. And how rewarding has it been for you? I mean, I'm sure extremely, but just knowing how many lives that you're impacting. I mean, obviously the 1,300, but obviously it's way more than that because you've been given a really big platform and it's getting shared a lot. You know what I mean? So you're having a bigger reach than probably you ever imagined. So how has that been for you, just knowing that you're really making such a big impact?
My wife Sherry and I are just overwhelmed with, we said going into this, it's a lot of people, but if we only help one person, that's worth it. And with the reach, we have different people in my district and other districts that have really supported each other and said, this is life-changing. I'm going to stick with this. From the Good Morning America article, we've had people as far west as California and Arizona reach out to us for help. We've had somebody in our own town who saw the story, emailed my wife and said, help, we need help. And we don't know where to begin. And her husband had a heart attack a year or so ago and needed some support. And, so we're here to help those people. And it's like, it's just amazing to see people transform. And yes, we may guide them to these places or resources, but they're doing the work. And they're so excited and pleased with themselves for this.
Right. And it really helps a lot too, Doug. I mean, yeah, you're leading them to the resources, they're doing the work, but it helps knowing, I'm sure, that they have you for questions if they need them, or you've done it, so you know what it feels like, or if they need support, you're there. So it's it all just, works together just so well.
It does. And it's rewarding. I mean, I've loved my life as a teacher. I love working with the students. This is along the same lines. It's guiding people to the information and helping them learn about it. And, for the most part, it's been more well received than I would have hoped. I mean, usually it's sort of a hard sell, but I think in the past few years, plant-based nutrition has become a buzzword, just like paleo was before and some of these other things. But the difference is this is backed by science and supported by overwhelming science. And some people want to believe it. Some people don't, because they don't like to hear that their favorite food is killing them. Mm-hmm. But those that do listen and take it in, they've learned a lot, at least about nutrition. And, in our school district, we've had people that have suffered from colon cancer. And, when you read about colon cancer, one of the major things is the lack of fiber in most Americans' diet. And plant-based diet is nothing but fiber. And so you're helping to heal these people from the inside out. And it's just great.
Yeah, no, it's just so amazing. And, I know you mentioned, obviously you guys just finished up the challenge and you're working on putting all the research together. Is there anything else that you guys are working on that you want to share with people, or just continue just to, help as many people as possible that reach out, or, just anything that you want to share with everybody?
We're trying, you were taking a look and saying, okay, we are getting this publicity. How can we leverage this to help more people and still keep that personal touch? Mm-hmm. The other thing is there's still some buzz going around. There's some local businesses that are, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or, being asked to speak at some state convention for the physical education teachers and things like that. So some of those things are still coming, and I'm wondering what they will bring to help this platform. Especially the Good Morning America article, they made it sound like I created this program, and not. I used resources that were out there, and that's the thing. The resources are available. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's the cost of a book. The food, you're buying food anyways. You don't need any fancy shakes. You don't need any buy some fancy program or supplements. It is just eating good food. And that's what I want to try to get across to people in the best way possible. So, if people want to talk to me, I'm on Facebook under Doug Schmidt, but I'm also there in our challenge group, and we welcome everybody.
What is the challenge group name? That way I can put it in the show notes.
It is the 10-day Jumpstart Your Health Challenge.
Awesome. All right, cool. Did you say Instagram as well, or was it just the two Facebook?
Well, I am on Instagram, but I'm under Instagram, and I'm looking it up because I post pictures. I post food pictures there mostly. I think it's Heartstrong Food is what I am. Yep, Heartstrong Food. So if you look up me, I'm Heartstrong Food. I'm also on Twitter. You can just search for Doug Schmidt on Twitter. And my wife and I have a joint email that we respond to people's personal questions and things. It's eatplantslove@gmail.com.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll put all of those in the show notes, Doug. That way people can click or reach out or however they want to contact you and just follow everything that you're doing. But Doug, just closing question that I ask every guest. But if you just had one piece of advice for the audience, maybe it's been something that's been your biggest takeaway through this whole journey so far. But if you just had one piece of advice to give, what would it be?
Step outside your comfort zone. If you never do that, nothing will ever change. So whether it be just trying this plant-based diet, putting your foot in and trying a couple recipes, or getting out and exercising a little bit more than you have in the past, you have to step outside your comfort zone for change. Change is inevitable. Either you can ride the change and make the change, or that change is going to ride you and take you to where it wants to go. So you taking charge of your life and you creating the change is so powerful, and it's so rewarding.
No, that's awesome. I love it, Doug. And just thank you so much for taking time to come on. I'm glad that you were able to, and I'm excited for people to hear your story and just to jump into the challenge with you guys, because I know it's just the amount of lives that are going to change it's going to be amazing. So just thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you loved my conversation with Doug. His story is just so amazing, and I know he's going to change so many people's lives. Be sure to give Doug a follow on social media to keep up with the amazing things that he's doing. You can find his social media links and website that we talked about in the episode in the show notes, but you can also find them on my website as well at drkaseyjohnson.com. That's drkaseyjohnson.com. Click on the Listen tab. Then from there, you'll be able to see all of the past guests that have come on the Unlock Wellness podcast, read a little bit about each guest, and be able to click on their social media links, websites, all of that. So all of Doug's information can be found on my site as well. Thank you again for all of the support for my first 100 episodes. It means the world. The support has been incredible. And if you guys have been loving the podcast, please just take 2 minutes today to jump on iTunes, subscribe, and write a review. It just helps me out so much and just helps more listeners find the podcast. So if you can just do that today for me, it would mean the world. Thank you guys so much again for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you loved it. I hope it inspires you. And most importantly, I hope you take action.